everyone is doing well. I got a little stuffy nose, which is going to make this real interesting. But first and foremost, Burgundy, Amber, Stilly, and Cheshire. Let's have that sip together, okay? 1, 2, 3. Good morning. Oh, and you too, Kata. Let's go. Yummy. Trying the winter Alani, very cranberry. Sounds horrible. Unless it's good cranberry. Is it just straight bitter, or is it like chocked full of sugar? Stilly, since you have limited time, I have found a somewhat short story that we will read. And this one's titled Time Remaining. Time remaining 1 minute and 25 seconds. I tap my finger on the coffee table while watching the blue circle on the screen go round and round. 3, 2, 1. Download complete. I've been waiting to use this app for a while. I came across it while doom scrolling on the App Store, which could be considered a new personal low. It's kind of like those prediction apps. You enter your name and it's supposed to tell you when you're going to die. I clicked open. The screen turned black and later a text appeared in red letters and a very sharp font. Kinda reminded me of horror movies, or maybe some death metal bands. Final Countdown. That was the app name. Seems innocent enough, just a random choice calculator, I thought to myself. I hit start. The next page loaded a white box with writing above it. Please enter your full name, e.g. Samantha Brownshoe. I typed my name in the box. My fingers trembled with adrenaline as I prepared to hit the button. And the notification came. Time remaining, less than 24 hours. I paused for a second. I was expecting something like 75 years or so, but oh well, let's give it another go. So I did. I went back to the main menu, start, entered my name, waited. Same response. Less than 24 hours. I guess it's one of those generators that only spits out one answer to each user. Unlucky, I guess. I left the house to go run some errands. The traffic was unbearable, so I decided to take a shortcut to an alley, thinking I'd be done much faster. I was driving in peace for a while, when the sound of a horn penetrated my skull. I swear, I have never slammed on the brakes so fast before. Dude, are you serious? On my right, I saw a man exit his vehicle and march towards me, murmuring and spitting curses all along. I couldn't understand what he was talking about. I started looking around the street trying to figure out what was happening. I had missed a stop sign, and I still cannot for the life of me remember how that happened. The only thing I clearly remember is the man's last words that made my blood run cold. The way you drive, you're gonna be dead in less than 24 hours, asshole. And I sure as hell don't want to go to jail for someone like you. Less than 24 hours. With trembling hands, I pulled over immediately, opened my phone. The countdown was still the same, but there was a new footnote at the bottom. Dodge death. 1 of 2. I felt my heart beating in my throat. to think. My better judgment told me that this was stupid, that this was just an app. But my gut was screaming that something was wrong. What does 1 out of 2 mean? What's going to happen after 2 times? I parked the car and decided to walk the rest of the way so I could take my mind off of things. The more time passed, the more this app started to get in my head. I kept checking over and over. 19 hours. 18. 17. By the time I returned, I felt I was completely losing my mind. The whole ride home, I kept walking past signs of the kind, like every day is your last. Even the cashier at the grocery store seemed off. She never took her eyes off me while scanning the products, and had this god-awful grin on her face spreading from ear to ear. I threw my sack of bones of a body onto the couch and turned on the TV in a final attempt to unwind and clear my head. But, of course, that wasn't even close to what happened. Ladies and gentlemen, we are interrupting our usual programming to announce an emergency broadcast. A robbery has taken place at a local grocery store and has left behind a number of victims. My eyes opened so wide they nearly fell out of my sockets. That was the store I was just in. The culprit has not yet been arrested, and security footage from the store does not provide with a clear image for identification. The sound of a notification made me jump. App, you have 1 new notification. I was begging and praying it wouldn't be what I thought. Dodged death. 2 of 2. My knees gave in. I sat in silence for moments that felt like an eternity, unable to think or act in any way. I wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. How do you escape death? Now I sit here writing this after someone knocked on my door just a second ago. 3 steady knocks, slow, and an intense, impending sense of doom lingering in the air. There's someone out there waiting for me. Maybe if I stay inside, I can escape. Maybe if I don't answer the door, you'll get tired and leave and the countdown will stop. Maybe I can escape. Maybe I can't. I'm feeling sicker as the time goes by, and I think I coughed up a bit of blood. Bum bum. Let me scroll up and read what you guys are saying. Dara, doing pretty good. Don't know if you're still here, but I'm doing alright. You know, ups and downs, but today's like very neutral so far. Morning's just getting started, still having coffee, still trying to wake up. Feels like I can't fully wake up, you know, one of those days. I never have to rush things. Fair enough. Alright, Stelly. They're better for you than other energy drinks. Is this Celsius? Hey, yo? What's up, yo, me, in Isla? Sonoma, nice to see you. I hope you're doing well. My Chinese food is too sweet and gave me a toothache? Why were you eating the Chinese donuts? Those sound great. It's been a while. I definitely want some. They're so simple yet like so efficient. Perfect timing, Sharky. Perfect timing. What's up? You're in your online class? Fair enough. Well, let's have that slip together. Okay? 1, 2, 3. That's more like a gulp. No, it's just sesame chicken. But why is it sweet? I guess, is sesame chicken supposed to be sweet? I don't know. I normally like, we have like, you know the the same Chinese restaurant that's in every part of America. You know what I'm talking about. Like just that quality and style. If it's a place like that, I'll usually get like sesame or General Tso's. Here lately though, like I don't know. It's not great. Used to, and I think what I'm gonna do from now on. I always make sure I get in like a small version of it. But the sweet and sour chicken, I feel like that's just your best bet. I feel like they used a different kind of chicken. Cause like you don't with the sweet and sour chicken, you never get any weird cuts. You know what I mean? It's just always like consistent quality. Gonna have your crunchy shell. Yeah. You get the weird sauce that you don't want to use too much of. That's the one sauce you don't want to go overkill on. Ah, you sound a little stuffy. You're not catching a flu. Nah, I'm just a little stuffy today. Just on one nostril though, so that's interesting. That's fun. That's exciting. The good one in my city is so ghetto. It's takeout only, and most of the time they give you your food in a box. Yeah, like the little, yeah. Fair. Wait, like an actual like cardboard box, or instead of a bag, or are you saying like they box up your food? Because if that's the case, then yeah, same here. Ours will get the little plastic trays. Not trays, but little plastic boxes, you know. Kind of want Chinese. We have this buffet. I don't know if it's still open in town. And yeah, maybe that wouldn't be a bad idea. Huh. Maybe that's what we'll do some weekend. Maybe not this one. I threw a picture of my last order in the tofu Discord. Yeah, I need to see. I meant to do it before stream, but to check if you guys had any response on what to do for the celebration thing. If so, please throw all the ideas you have, and I'll be like, this one speaks to me. Because I only have like the same ideas, and I wanted to do something that you guys would like, or could even participate in. You know, combos making me hungry. Listen, I haven't eaten today. I'm starting to get a little hungry myself. I'm not sure what I want, though. I don't even know what I have. I don't want to cook, I know that much. I immediately responded jokingly, then gave a real opinion. I am looking forward to it. Let's see. We have another story here. I have 3 more that we might make our way through. But this one is titled, "Did you see the paper today?" Mark asked me excitedly. I had. Total lunar eclipse this Friday. His perverse excitement irked me, but I had known he'd always been fascinated by it throughout our marriage. I talked to Steve about it today, he said, lowering his voice as if savoring the words. He told me they've known for a while. Astrological calendar or something. Steve's been tracking it at the station. And someone at the school told you? Yes, I lied. You should have told me. His irritation sharpened, then softened into something almost gleeful. After a beat of silence, he asked, "How many do you think he'll kill this year?" I drew a breath, forcing myself to steady the irritation in my voice. I don't know, Mark. You know, I don't like to talk about it. But the numbers clawed their way back, unbidden. Everyone in town knew them. Tuesday, July 6, 1982. 1 killed. Thursday, December 30th that same year. 1 more. Thursday, August 17th, 1989. 4. Wednesday, December 9th, 1992. Another 4. Monday, November 29th, 1993. 4 again. And just this spring, Wednesday, April 3rd, 1996. 6 gone. Oh, okay. Alright, Stilly. You have a good rest of your day. Hope it gets a little bit better. Cause oof. Not a wonderful thing. 20 bodies in Amherst. No, I did not like to think about it. More than last time, I'd imagine, I said at last, if only to placate him. Honey, Mark's voice lifted with a strange eager brightness. Steve says they're certain they'll catch him this time. It wasn't the first time the police thought that they were closing in on the killer. They've said that before, I reminded him. I know, Mark rushed, excitement rising, but Steve couldn't give me the details, cop stuff. But he swears it's different this time. Steve was a good man and meant well for a cop, but half the time, he didn't know his ass from his elbow. I hope he's right, I said, though I didn't believe it. The first killing had shaken the town to its core. Wednesday, July 7th, an early morning jogger stumbled across the mangled body of, Michael Strong, a 16-year-old delinquent, along the banks of Buffer's Pond. His throat had been slashed so deep his head was nearly severed. The sheer brutality suggested someone who knew him. One of his mother's revolving boyfriends was hauled in, questioned, and just as quickly cut loose. The town was buzzing that summer, the summer after Mark and I graduated. Our relationship had only just begun. He'd been terrified I'd met someone else after school that fall. Then the murder happened, and he was horrified yet unable to look away. After all, his younger brother had gone to school with Michael Strong. Me too. Really wanted to see the monster who could be doing this. He paused. The bus is here. Tell Shar I love her. Will do. Love you too. Love you too. I'll see you tonight. It was hard to believe Sharon was already 7. August 2nd, 1989, still the hardest day of my life. 9 hours of labor, each contraction a tidal wave tearing through me. I remember clutching Mark's hand so tight my nails left crescents in his skin. His voice steadying me through the pain, and then, at last, her cry split the air. Sharp, fierce, alive. The nurse laid her on my chest, warm and squirming, and then Mark's eyes brimmed with tears as if he had never seen anything so perfect. Mark had always wanted a baby. It made him wait. First my undergraduate, then my master's. We married in the middle, his plumbing jobs keeping us afloat while I scraped for lab grants that always came too late. When I finally told him we could try, the joy in his face was something I'll never forget. And Sharon, our Sharon, was the greatest gift we had ever been given. Also, please let me know if my audio is distorted at all. I can fix it very easily. I have to turn my gain up whenever I get on Discord and stuff. But when I come here, I try to turn it down a little bit so it doesn't have that clipping, crunchy issue. Just over 2 weeks later, 4 students were butchered on campus. Thank you, Sonoma. August 17th, 1989. The night of freshman orientation. Someone had slipped through an unlocked window on the first floor of the Baker house, in and out quick as a shadow. The girls, Lisa Rathbone, Shannon Armstrong, Tracy Lloyd, and Dennis Derwick, had left the latch undone. It was enough. The killer started with Lisa and Denise, crushing their skulls with a hammer before the others even stirred. By the time Shannon and Tracy woke to the sound of a hammer squelching brain, it was too late. Their screams tore through the dorm, echoing down the hallways, but the orientation, chaos, and the lunar eclipse that had drawn so many students outside kept help from coming. time anyone forced the door, the room was a slaughterhouse. Lisa and Denise lay unrecognizable. Shannon wasn't in much of a better state. Tracy was still alive, barely, her body twitching as she slipped into a coma that she would never wake from. Mark was horrified. And me. If it hadn't been for the pregnancy, I might have been there that night, working. That was the first time anyone began whispering about the pattern, how it might not be a coincidence at all. Michael Strong's murder and Chelsea Murphy's that December had rattled the town. Both were brutal, senseless killings in a place that prided itself on safety, but they were treating it as isolated tragedies, the kind of horror that struck once in a generation. No one, at least not openly, spoke of the fact that both deaths had fallen on nights of a lunar eclipse. Mark would later claim that after Murphy's murder, he knew the killer only struck beneath an eclipse. But I knew he was lying. He hadn't seen it. I had. I recognized it immediately, though I never told him. To his credit, after the second murder, he was quick to call it what it was, a serial killer. It was the early 80s though, and every brutal crime was a serial killer's work until months passed, then years, and the fear dulled. Even Mark let it slip from his mind. Until 89, everything shifted. I rolled my chair back, opened the bottom drawer of my file cabinet, and the astrological calendar peered up at me. Friday, September 27th. The paper smelled faintly of dust and old coffee, the corners softened from years of being thumbed. It hadn't been a coincidence that Michael Strong and Chelsea Murphy were killed under lunar eclipses, but full eclipses that crossed over Amherst coincided with killings. Eclipses that missed the town did not. Partial eclipses produced nothing. For a while, I let doubt creep in. Maybe I'd been seeing patterns where none existed. Then, Baker House, and now September 27th glared back at me from the calendar, heavy as an omen. That odd feeling twisted, stirring in my stomach. I swallowed hard, trying to push it down and to steady myself. 89 had been the year I began my doctorate, and the year panic swept the university. Security patrols doubled, curfews were enforced, and dorm windows were nailed shut. The campus they called the zoo fell silent. Thank God for our parents whose babysitting let me return to the lab, and for Mark, by then a newly minted master plumber who threw himself into work. When the school year ended without another attack, a memorial plaque was set in the ground beside Baker Hall. By the following year, the speeches grew shorter, the vigil crowd smaller, the memories dimmer, and by December of 1992, the murders had been all but forgotten. By then, I was teaching 100-level classes to rooms of glassy-eyed underclassmen. Finals were looming, the holidays hung in the air, and even after a lifetime of this town, the sight of a dress for Christmas could still coax a smile from me. Yeah, even that December. The bricks glowed warm against the cold, lanterns burned in the town center, and campus lawns sprouted Christmas trees and snowmen. We'd only been in our first house since February, but Mark made that first Christmas there feel enchanted. It was the kind of calm that settles in just before January and February bury the town beneath snow drifts higher than windows, the wind cutting sharp at 10 below. My students, out of staters, internationals, and Eastern Mass kids alike, chattered with wide-eyed excitement about the coming lunar eclipse, calling it a Christmas miracle. I smiled and let them. I didn't have the heart to tell them what it really meant. was grateful that none of my students were killed. None from the university at all. Wednesday, December 9th. 4 Amherst College students had been laughing amidst a snowball fight on East Drive when the shooter struck. Jamal Naveer, Elizabeth Hawkins, and Dorothy Freeman went down instantly, gunned down with precision no amateur could ever manage. Jacob Donnelly ran. The shooter clipped his shoulder, dropped him in the snow, and while he begged and pleaded, finally put a round in his head. Execution style. It had stopped snowing earlier that afternoon. Steve, by then on the force, told Mark that if the flakes had kept falling, they might have been able to track the tires. It's bull, if you ask me. Steve was working a desk, not a homicide. What did they have? What they did have were 7 shell casings, all 45s from a Colt M1911. The manhunt exploded. The press gave the killer a name, the Blood Moon Killer. I don't know who coined it, but it stuck, spreading like wildfire. Police began dragging in every Amherst resident who owned a 45, interrogating veterans, burning through leads. And then, just after New Year's, the whole of UMass roiled when Professor Ian Lowe was arrested. A veteran, his service pistol conveniently missing, his wife refusing to confirm his alibi. Mark was stunned. We had eaten dinner at Lowe's house just weeks before, over Thanksgiving. He tried to save face by insisting Lowe had always rubbed him the wrong way. Attractive men often did. The trial began that June, a full-blown circus. Reporters flooded Hampshire District Court. Western Mass had never seen anything like it. The police, the prosecution, the whole community believed they had their man. Lowe had lived in Amherst since '78. He was a large, fit veteran. His gun was gone. He couldn't explain that away. They tried to tie all 10 murders to him, the details that didn't fit. That he wasn't in Amherst on July 6, 1982, and that he couldn't possibly have squeezed through Baker's house window. More were conveniently left unspoken. What's up, Sue? My voice doesn't match what you thought I'd sound like. What were you imagining? Yeah, wonderfully put, Yumi. We're all full of surprises here. Enjoy the Larkaloon. And Cornea, if you're still here, let's have this up to cover. 1, 2, 3. Under a blankie. Did you leave early? Definitely something more high-pitched. Let me calculate what that is for me. Okay. Alright. Oh no. Barely counting makes me die. Oh god. And there's no recovery. This is just who I am now. There we go. Oh my god. I'll never count again. I'll never math again. I knew it was a mistake. F indeed, lady. Yeah. Back to the story. I still remember the broadcast in September. Sharon was playing with Mark on the carpet as I watched the news. The defense had introduced a new witness, graduate student Kelly Warren. I knew her. I knew about her relationship with Lowe. I knew about his relationship with TAs, with staff, with anyone who batted an eye his way. It didn't take long for the prosecution's case to start to fray. But as November neared, and the next anticipated lunar eclipse approached, the town held its breath. One way or another, we would find out whether the Blood Moon Killer was already in custody, or still at large. Monday, November 29th, 1993, The moon had darkened to the deepest shade I'd ever seen. Blood moon is a misnomer. It's usually a dull orange. But that night, it was nearly red, glowing like a burning coal as I drove home beneath it. People said the eclipse lasted an hour. In truth, it was 46.7 minutes. When I walked in, Mark told me the news. 4 more dead. 2 students had been killed just off the North Campus near Fairfield Street, out under the sky, watching the moon. Riley Tompkins and Sarah Jacobs. Riley had taken a knife to the back of her throat, the blade driven deep enough to push through where her Adam's apple had been. Sarah had made an awful scream as she ran, but she was silenced by a single round from a Colt 45. The bullet punched in just at the juncture of the neck and shoulder, tearing through muscle, artery, and bone. It should have killed her. It did not. The killer finished the work by stomping her skull. A neighbor, 56-year-old Ken Williams, had heard the shot and stepped outside with his own revolver, hoping to help. Instead, he came upon the killer scraping brain matter from the soles of their boots on the curb. Ken took a single shot above the left eye. He dropped instantly. The killer then drifted back toward the university. Graduate student Lu Jui had left the life sciences lab. He did not run. He took a bullet to the chest, dropped to where he stood, and never rose again. Mark had been horrified. How could he not be? I worked right there. I was horrified too, though for a different reason. I had known Li Jui. He had been an exceptional student, quiet, precise, courteous, his work in the lab meticulous. This is deja vu. Oh my god, this is weird. Let me math for you. Yeah, you want to do all the thinking for me, so you want to take care of everything? Yeah. Yay. Did I hear my name? Yes, it was for the sippies. For the coffee. I was letting you know I was taking the sip and inviting you to have one with me. Thank you, lady. Professor Lowe was released soon after. His marriage dissolved and he moved far from Amherst. The town barely whispered his name again. Steve told Mark the rest one night over beers at our kitchen table, while I strained my ears from the other room. The CCTV footage had caught a little, but not enough. Lee pausing outside the life sciences building, waving at someone off camera, then lowering his hand in confusion for a split second before the shot punctured through his chest. Steve admitted that he believed the killer was a student. There had been no real suspects, no trail to follow, just a body on the pavement, a halfway frozen in time and a single .45 shell left behind. In a move that shocked everyone, the university shuts its doors and sent students and faculty home. The press tore them apart for it. After all, hadn't it become obvious by then that the killer only struck under eclipses? Sending everyone away was just a little more than theater. Worse, the police signed off on the decision before realizing that they might have just delivered the killer back to whatever hometown he had come from. Everyone could see it. They were desperate, grasping at straws, as lost as the rest of us. Mark, meanwhile, was transfixed, awestruck, horrified, fascinated, as if he couldn't look away from a fire without it consuming everything around it. I was left with something else. The same hollow aftermath that always followed. A pounding headache, sharp and sour like a hangover, a creeping numbness that dulled the edges of thought, and beneath it all, crushing futility of knowing it would happen again. After those 4 deaths, the town's frenzy told. I'm gonna mute really quick. Had a cough. The headlines shrank. The nightly news moved on, and the chatter in the grocery store aisles faded to silence. The case went cold, another unsolved knot consigned to rumor. The university, eager to wash its hands, erected yet another plaque. Just this one just of Governors, off Governor's Drive, for the 3 students lost. No mention of Ken Williams. A middle-aged man didn't carry the same weight as students with futures ahead of them. His name slipped into silence, a footnote, if even that. Months without an eclipse bled into years. Sharon started school, and life found its strange rhythm again. My career in academia began to gather momentum just as Mark's plumbing business took off. We built a life that looked, from the outside, almost enviable. A neat house, steady work, laughter at the dinner table. Mark longed for another child, a son. He said to balance the scales. I managed to talk him out of it, sheltering behind the excuse of my career, grants, research, conferences. I told him I needed time, but the truth was simpler and far darker. I couldn't imagine bringing another child into a world where the air itself seemed haunted, where shadows returned every time the moon burned red. One child was enough. One was already too much risk. I think the twist here is going to be that OP is the murderer. I got mortar in my genes. We can't bring any more mortars into this world. Nearly 3 whole years slipped by. We had moved into a larger, prettier house on Pine Hollow, ironically, just down the road from where Michael Strong had been butchered years ago. The neighborhood near Buffer's Pond was quiet now, scrubbed clean of memory, though I could never forget. I buried myself in work, papers and lectures piling up on top of one another, until March crept in almost unnoticed. It was then that the familiar sensation returned, settling into me with a way that I could neither shake nor name. It began in the gut, a hollow gnawing, not pain exactly, but an emptiness. My skin felt restless, my blood quickened, my thoughts turned jagged. I had learned to recognize it over the years, though no explanation ever followed. It was always the same, a slow, ravenous stirring that left me uneasy in my own body, as though I had been hollowed out and replaced by something that craved more than I could ever give. Wednesday, April 3rd, brought with it a flicker of hope. The eclipse that day would pass unseen, swallowed by the afternoon sky, and some whispered that perhaps this time Amherst would be spared. But hope, like every other illusion, dissolved quickly. Police and National Guard patrolled in droves, posted on every corner, and clustered in pairs across the campus, all across the town. Their presence was loud, visible, meant to reassure, and yet it left behind spots large enough for a body to slip right through. The killer did just that. They walked in unnoticed to the Mullins Center, where life went on as though nothing could happen under such a heavy guard. Inside the women's locker room, amid the steam and hiss of the showers, Senior Chelsea McRae, The weapon was simple, domestic, no larger than a dinner knife, yet sharp enough to punch through bone. It was driven upward with such force that the blade lodged its hilt into her jaw, penning her scream where it started. Water continued to run, curtains drawn, steam swirling lazily through the tiled room. For several long minutes, her body went undiscovered, the scene hidden in plain sight while the killer slipped away. Only when another girl pulled back the curtain after seeing blood did the silence finally break. And the air filled with the screaming that never really leaves you once you've heard it. Students and staff poured from the Mullen Center in a blind surge, bodies colliding, voices shrieking, while the authorities stumbled over themselves to cordon the exits, to push inward, to simply make sense of the chaos. In the crush of it all, the killer moved unnoticed. Their hand twitched against the grip of a concealed .45, an almost uncontrollable urge to fire into the crowd. Why didn't they? Perhaps some primal reflex of self-preservation intervened. The instinct that usually drove them forward had for once held them back. Instead, they slipped toward the physical plant. Inside, the workers carried on, almost untouched by the commotion outside, the muffled roar of the crowd barely reaching them. One man, Devin Wade, even stopped the killer to ask what was happening. They walked past him without a word. Seconds later, inside, the killing began. Robert McMillan was the first, a single shot below the right eye, neat, clinical, and he fell without so much a cry. The sound drew Kevin Farty from the other side door. He froze at the sight. Robert's body sprawled on the floor, the gun already swinging towards him, and managed only a strangled "no" before the bullet buried itself in his chest. Behind the killer, another door opened. Devin Wade again, the same man who had asked so casually a moment before. Why had he come running towards gunfire? Maybe the sound was dulled, maybe the chaos outside distracted him. Whatever the reason, he lasted only a breath. A round caught his neck, Charlie Kirk style, sending him staggering, hands pressed into the wound as blood sprayed in great wet bursts. He collapsed, gargling on the floor. The killer pressed on. In a supply closet, Javier Adaria was discovered curled up in a ball, whispering in accented English. "Please," was the only word he could get out before the .45 split his skull open, painting the shelves behind him. At the far end of the plant, a flicker of movement gave away Raymond Gibson. He lunged before the killer could fire, a heavy fist cracking across their face. The gun discharged, the round grazing his thigh, but Gibson was built like a wall and bore down with brute strength. One massive hand clamped around the killer's throat, the other wrenched the pistol free. For a moment, it seemed over. But the blood moon killer was not sustained by human limits. In that frenzy, they clawed downward with a free hand, nose ripping through fabric and flesh, tearing Gibson's scrotum open in a savage animal motion. His scream was primal, reflexive, and his grip faltered. The killer seized the .45, shoved the muzzle against his skull, and fired. Bone and brain matter splattered the wall. Gibson toppled, finally still. The plant was silent save for the echo of dripping water, settling dust, and the faint hiss of blood pooling on concrete. The killer moved on instinct alone, slipping out of the plant with the predator's caution, hugging the shadows skirting the buildings where cameras were mounted. Blood clung to their skin, soaked their clothes, hardened in their hair. It should have made them visible to anyone with eyes, and in truth, people did see. Faces turned, gazes lingered, but no one intervened. In the chaos, who would step in front of a 5'3" woman dripping red when the killer was still at large? I'm just gonna go ahead and pause the story really quick. Earlier they called the killer, when they were talking about the killer's perspective, they used the word him. What? Like, I thought it was gonna be OP, and I still think it is. But, like, why would they misgender themselves? Unless it was bad writing. Which, I do like the story, I think it's fun. But, yeah, I just don't like that I don't like that mistake. Oh, let me read what you guys are saying. Also, what's up, girl? How you doing? Let's have that sip together. And thank you for the sip. 1, 2, 3. I'm sorry I have you in the background while playing WoW. Your voice is so deep, it massages my eardrums. Nice. Nice. You can ask Sue and Sonoma and Ayumi. It's definitely the processing. It doesn't hit the same through like a call or anything like that. I can say pretty confidently that Tofu has one of the best voices in the ASMR space. Oh my. That's very nice to hear. Thank you very much. And good morning. What's up? What's up, Sea Turtle? How you been, Captain? Okay, back to the story. Boom, boom. It does though. Your voice is beautiful. No, I'm gonna stop. Oh my God, Crow. Thank you very much for the thank you, and for that as well. Blech. Well, then I'll push further and say that it's not as good in real life because the mic picks up a higher frequency of sound that you would only hear if my ear was like right here. So, yeah. Del Gribble, love it, wonderful name, and thank you very much for the coffee. Let's have this up together, buddy. Oh, nope, let's just have a stroke instead. Great. We love strokes here. We support them. I'm actually getting 60 frames now for the model. And, yeah. I feel like the jerkies are even worse. But anyway, Del Gribble, Pocket Sand Man. Let's have that sip together. 1, 2, 3. Cancelled for being a stroke supporter? What do you mean? Swimming is good exercise. I think it's important to have some sort of like, physical exercise, if possible. The backstroke the breaststroke is good as well, but we're not going to talk about that one. All right, I'm going to read the story. I'm going to read the story and stop being me for a moment. Above. Oh, apparently I can talk. Thanks, buddy. Above the blood moon loomed, right, swollen, deeper than rust. Impossible not to stare, impossible not to feel the hunger ease, the body settling into the quiet tremor of satiation. By the time they reached the Bay State Franklin, the call had been made. A husband's frantic voice on the other end demanding to know what happened. She soothed them in steady tones, explained she'd only caught the stampede at the Mullen Center, elbow to the eye, forearm to the throat. Ooh? Noise? How did it? I don't know how that happened. It doesn't show me anything, but cool. Very cool. Thank you guys very much. Oh, form to the throat, the crush of bodies in flight. That, she said, was why she bore a shiner, the dark rings around her neck, the concussion pounding through her skull. The concussion justified the drive north. The doctors weren't convinced, not fully. Their expressions flickered with doubt, catching on the seams in their story. But she was injured. She was trembling. She was a victim. That was enough. The world bends towards the simplest explanation, and no one looked closer. And really, who could blame a woman for hysteria after escaping the Blood Moon Killer? I never really come to until the morning. The edges of the night arrive first, fragments, impressions, and only with daylight do memory congeal into something I can hold without slipping through my fingers. Over the years, those fragments have multiplied. There was once a black hole. There is now a series of jagged images I can piece together like a child's brutal collage. Oh my God, Sue. Lady. Thank you very much. And that's an all-time record shattered. Sue, if there is a keyword that you would like for an ASMR Script Haven script, please let me know. Get love nerdy, yeah. Apparently so. Thank you very much, lady. As a child, I was described as having terrible tantrums. I remember only an echo. 9 years old, I had my brother's leg broken. He never forgave me. I never forgave myself once the story was allowed and sealed into the family record. In middle school, there was a sleepover. Shelley Thomas and I woke to a frenzy I could not name. The police were called. Noah was taken for observation and released, the adults shrugging it off as a fleeting aberration. They saw me. They didn't see what pushed me. For a long time, I tried to contain it. I would lock myself in the house on nights when the moon threatened blood, pad the windows, and chain the doors. The ravenous thing in my gut, however, paid no attention to locks. It boiled until it burned through. If I did not feed it, if I did not give it its obscene satiation, I felt as though I would be unmade. The hunger was not metaphor. It was a pressure, a clawing pressure beneath the ribs and reason that demanded that blurred thought and will, until all that remained was animal survival. After Michael Strong, the nightmares began in earnest. I cannot remember the day itself, but his scream leapt inside me, a throat that would not close. Chelsea Murphy's cry joined in, then, and the sound of bodies falling. I sought help. I sat in therapist rooms and tried to explain the vertigo of dread that seized me on certain nights. They assumed I was like 100 other people in town, haunted, terrified, a sensible victim of circumstance. I let them believe it. There were 7 blank years, a strange mercy. Sharon was born. Mark and I built a life that looked ordinary. For a while, the tides of the thing within me subsided. Then Baker House happened. I could no longer pretend. I could no longer delude myself. The facts lined up like nails on a board. I have thought about ending it. I've imagined walking into a precinct and unspoiling everything, names, dates. I have sat in the dark and pictured Mark's face when he read the confession, Sharon's small hands in his when the bar slammed shut. The The thought recoils like a hand from flame. Could I do that to my daughter? To the man who has loved me? Could I hand them the orphaned wreckage of a life I had already broken? And now, I watch the calendar. This Friday drawing near. September 27th. The hunger has already started gnawing. A hollow ache that no food can touch. It coils tighter with each passing hour, a quiet reminder that resistance is futile. I don't know what I hope for anyone. Deliverance, discovery, death, perhaps all three. But I do know this. When the blood moon climbs the sky, its shadow swallows me whole. And when it does, the world will bleed. Wow. I just got this. It kind of looks like the ooh fingers. So. GG for discovering the plot twist. I think it was super plain. It was plain as day. Ugh. Ugh. I'll think about it for Script Haven if I don't forget. Okay. Well, you don't have to take me up on it. It's there if you would like it. Thank you again, lady. Let's see. We have, what time is it? Are you still free at 1:30? I have a story here titled, I'm being conscripted by a country that doesn't exist. Okay. I'll make sure that I end with enough time to eat. But for now, we at least have this one. No one hated war more than I did. I was as pacifist as they come, which was great since war isn't something I had to worry about. I'd watch my fellow classmates signing up for the military in our final year of high school. The way in which military recruiters would ply them with promises of honor, duty, or money. None of that came close to working on me. I was grateful to be from a country that didn't have a military draft. I wasn't going to trade my freedom, serenity, or possibly life for anything. The notion of young men and women going away to faraway lands to violently kill others, many of them innocents, disturbed me to my core. On my college campus, I was always out campaigning against war crimes and advocating for peace. I was a regular hippie archetype, right down to the long hair and sandals. The furthest thing you could imagine from a soldier. Yet, like so many hippies from decades past, my world changed one day when I received a letter in the mail. The envelope was ordinary, save for one detail. The stamp on the right top corner was a mixture of strange symbols that I had never seen before. Pulling it out of my dorm mailbox, I wondered how a stamp like that had even been accepted by the post office. I pulled out the letter inside and instantly assumed it was from the layout of the words that I'd gotten some kind of fine. I must have run a red light without even realizing, I cursed to myself. Then I started reading the letter and my frustration turned into bewilderment. The wording was formal and addressed me like it was coming from the government, but there was no way that the Australian government had sent me this. Greetings, Mr. Allen. Please be advised that, in light of our nation's escalating war with enemy nations, we have reinstated mandatory conscription for our pool of able citizens. You are hereby notified that you, a male citizen of the nation of Extorvists between the ages of 18 and 30 have been selected for military training and service herein. I scoffed in disbelieving amusement. What a silly prank. I had a reputation on campus for being a peacemaker, refusenik, and someone who saw me probably thought that this was the perfect gag. Good to know at least people were paying attention even if they're assholes, I thought. Yet, despite the clear absurdity of the letter, something about it felt so real, so authentic. It was just how government letters were written in real life, down to the font and formatting. I kept reading. You are to report for active duty in 2 months. Time of receipt of this letter. Enclosed is one map and a token for the purposes of your travels to said induction station at the location listed below. It is your obligation to inform any relatives, loved ones, and employers of your conscription and make arrangements for the duration for which you will be deployed. This period is subject to high command discretion and may range from 2 to 2,000 years. Willful failure to report promptly at this location at the hour and day on the specified in this notice will violate the Mandatory Training and Service Act of 103,472 and will subject you to immediate arrest, imprisonment, and corporal punishment. Be warned that no leniency will be granted to anyone who chooses to ignore this directive. Yes. Signed, Extorvis Military Commander, blank. On the signature line, instead of a legible name, was an indecipherable scribble in purple ink that cannot have been in English. Hell, it didn't look like any other language I had seen either. And that country's name, Extorvis? In all my education, I have never heard of it before. I certainly wasn't a citizen of it. What's that? Asked my preppy roommate, who had been regarding my befuddled expression of the letter with curiosity. Just more evidence that not even our delinquents are smart here at Melbu, I said. Dumbasses don't even know any real countries to prank me with. I showed him the letter, and his reaction was just as incredulous as mine had been. Godspeed and Exorvis, bro, he joked, slapping the paper back into my hand. I know you'll be their finest soldier. That night, I looked up the nation of Exorvis on Wikipedia to be sure, and sure enough, it was just as non-existent as it was ridiculous. Nor was the strange, ominous nation anywhere on the globe in the campus library. A few weeks passed by, and I tried to forget about the bizarre prank letter. I knew it was fake, knew it had to be fake, and yet, every day that passed made me feel uneasier, as if some invisible clock was ticking down and my drafting date really was drawing near. I brushed it off as concerned about the prankster escalating this and sending me something worse. To put my mind at ease, I took the strange letter to the local post office. Surely they could tell me if the letter was actually sent from there, and if so, who would really send it. The sender's address was on the envelope, and had just been another mixture of strange symbols like the stamp and signature, besides the word Extorvis, so I was in the dark. I'd half expected the post office worker to laugh me out of the building when I showed him the letter. I didn't expect him to go quiet and stare at me like I was a walking missile target. Can you tell me who really sent this, or what? I asked impatiently. The balding postie worker steadied himself and explained in hushed tones. Look, this letter is indeed a real government order. The sender was the party marked on the address. If I was you, I'd report for duty like it says. It's much worse for those who don't. You might have a chance if you do. Also, it's a federal offense to disobey it. Are you kidding me? How can I report to a military of a fictional place? Extorvis doesn't exist. It doesn't exist in this reality, was all he has back to me. And before I could get another word in, he was on to the next customer. What the hell? Now, I was definitely feeling anxious about the mysterious draft letter. Could what he had said be true? I hopped online again, but this time headed straight for the internet forums instead of academic resources. If this letter had really been sent to others before, like the postal worker implied, then someone would have asked the same questions I'm asking now. Where's the country extorvus? Why am I being drafted by them? How dangerous is it serving the military? What exactly will I be fighting for? When will I be discharged? Who has successfully evaded the draft? My forum posts were only live for an hour when I received a short private message from someone in response. Are they drafting you too? I hurriedly messaged back my confirmation. Their next message came almost instantly. Can we meet? Meeting up with a stranger over the internet, who I'd only briefly messaged with, who might be potentially crazy, was not the smartest action in the world. But I knew that no one else would believe me. That going to family and friends would just get my fears dismissed. To them, I would be the potentially crazy one. Hermit99 sent me an out-of-the-way address to meet him at. An empty warehouse on the outskirts of town. It was every bit as dodgy as I thought it might be as I walked into the cramped abandoned space filled with packing crates. Through the rays of sunlight that streamed in from the rafters, I saw a decrepit figure crouched over a laptop. That had to be him. You're Hugo, right? He snapped at me, looking up from his charging laptop. I'm Leroy. You shut the door behind you, right? I started wondering if this was a bad idea. Show me your letter. He barked in a panic. He practically snatched it out of my hands, skimming it over like someone who had spent many hours doing the same before. Dude, what gives? I asked in frustration. Why don't you tell me what the hell is happening to us? Why am I being drafted by some weird country that I have nothing to do with? He looked at me incredulously. Nothing to do with? If they sent you this letter, then you're a distant descendant of a being that was. That makes you a citizen in their eyes. Like me. So you're a citizen of this place too then? I asked, trying to wrap my head around the idea that one of my ancestors was an interdimensional being. Yeah. Unlike most descendants, my family always knew we had a drop of extra-force blood. I dedicated years to trying to research that realm. And then my later came in the mail. Leroy trailed off for a moment before startling out of it and continuing. Extra-force exists in another dimension. From what I've learned about it, it's not like Earth. It's vast and dark and brutal. Conflict between civilizations in that plane is constant. Wars there are massive in scale, compromising millions upon millions of beings battling with ancient weapons for years. Death there takes longer. When things get really bad, they recruit from the pool on Earth, ergo, us. My attention's growing at what he just told me. I decided to speed things along. Okay, gotcha. We're both in the firing lane for some spectral war in hell. So how do we get out of it? Leroy flipped my lever over and pointed to the fine print on the other side. Persons due to report may be disqualified from service to inhibiting injury or active service in separate military. Injury? Were we really about to start giving each other bone spurs? It seemed like it. I need someone to torture me so badly I'm deemed unfit for active duty, he said, gesturing to an array of construction tools on a bench next to him. My draft date was yesterday and I'm overdue. We need to act quick. I picked up a bolt cutter and tried stilling myself for what I was about to do. Before I could go any further, however, a whirling wind knocked it out of my hands. Almost on cue, shadowy humanoid figures began appearing throughout the warehouse. Everything he said was right. Leroy's time had run out. Petrified, I ducked behind a crate. From there, I witnessed it. The vague, darkened beings grabbing Leroy's screaming frame, hauling him to his feet and vanishing, undoubtedly back to whatever incomprehensible punishment awaited him in Extorvia. What's worse is, they'd waited to detain him until I was there to show me firsthand the consequences of desertion. I sat there for hours in that empty warehouse, alone and thinking. There was no way I would be able to injure myself badly enough to be excluded from the draft, which meant I only had one option remaining. That day, I returned home and enlisted in the Australian Army. It took several weeks for the process to go through and my confirmation to return to me. I waited with bated breath, every day expecting those shadowy soldiers to appear in my dorm room and take me away, but 2 days before my drafting date, there came that miracle letter. Another government letter telling me I was to be a soldier, but this time, a welcome mercy instead of a death sentence. My draft date came and passed without incident as I prepared and departed for military training at the boot camp. As per the drafting notice, I couldn't be conscripted if I was an active member of another nation's military. Now this time, I hated the thought of serving my country, and in the end, it had been the loophole that saved me. Truth be told, serving in my human military over the following changed my attitude about war here on Earth. It gave me purpose, discipline, and focus that perhaps I lacked before. The people I met were friendly and loyal, and I developed bonds with them that ran deep. I was grateful to be able to serve in this mortal realm instead of the demonic Extorvis one. After several years of contented service, my leg was eventually injured in an IED bombing. Thankfully, I didn't lose my ability to walk, but the injury was bad enough for me to be honorably discharged. I returned home to physically changed, but mentally improved. And that's when another conscription letter came from Extorvis. I had considered the possibility of this. I had to consider that the appeal letter I had sent them on account of my injured leg would be rejected. I am still expected to report for active duty in Extorvis in 2 months. According to the appeal letter, I hadn't read the fine print about disqualifying injuries. Finally, I understand why Leroy had specifically wanted me to torture him instead of just cripple him. He wanted me to injure his soul, not his flesh. Wars in Extorvis aren't fought with soldiers' bodies. They're fought with souls. I liked it up until the end. It's not a bad concept, but I felt like it could have used like a little bit of building up or something, you know. It is a neat concept. No, I'm giving it slightly more time. I just don't like the execution of it, you know. I think we are going to end stream for today. I'll see if we have anyone cool to raid. Let's see. We have our very own Nadkian Neon available. Gonna go get some food and eat and stuff. I have to go, but thank you for the stream. Glad I could join. I'm happy that you could be here too. I always like going here. Oh, you're finishing? Yes. Yes, I am. Thank you too for being here, Bianni. But let's go raid Nadkian Neon.